Apple faces nearly $1 billion in a penalty here from Samsung for ordering too few OLED screens. We've talked about this in the past. I think most people are aware Apple is a huge customer of OLED displays from Samsung for a number of different models within its lineup. Samsung, the big time provider of OLED, not just for Apple, but just for the smartphone industry. Mm-hmm. And I mean, arguably the best manufacturer of such devices. Well, when you have a customer the scale of Apple, Will, you kind of want to know how many screens they're going to need. Yes. Yeah, before you tool the whole thing up and start setting the gears in motion and piling up.
It's a big order.
It's a huge order. You want to prepare for it. So it appears that Apple and Samsung, they come to these agreements beforehand saying, okay, you agree to purchase this number of displays from us. We tool up. We make sure you get them in a timely fashion. We make sure we have the staff on hand to deliver the things, and also that we book that portion of the assembly line to be available when you need it to be available. So it could be, because otherwise they could take on a different customer, mm-hmm. and in order to fill that bandwidth that they have available inside the assembly line. And then this is the other piece. The other piece comes in here where they say, okay, what happens if we don't need all those screens? Oh. And so it appears that what ends up happening is they have inside of the contract somewhere, you're going to pay us just a bunch of money to deal with the fact that you don't need these screens, you can't buy these screens, and we lost the opportunity to be making screens for somebody else or some other devices, maybe even our own devices. And so this lump sum figure, according to sources, is a payment close to $950 million. That will, I don't know if you noticed, but that's pretty close to that B letter.
Yeah.
That word that starts with the letter B, billion. It's almost $1 billion. Imagine that.
Oh, I thought you were going to say boatload.
Oh, boatload. Boatload as well. I think boatload starts at $1 billion as well. Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe not.
We haven't established
it. Boatload's a lot. So definitely $1 billion is a boatload. Samsung noted in its Q2 guidance release that the operating profit for Q2 included a one-time gain related to its display business. People were like, what's this one-time gain? What are we talking about? It didn't include the amount, so people started to investigate, try to figure out what that amount might be. Originally, people speculated $745 million. Now, some new reports suggest it was closer to that $1 billion figure, $950 million. The Apple payment likely turned what otherwise would have been an operating loss for display devices into an operating profit. Revenue guidance was down 7% year on year for Samsung Display, but operating profit guidance was up 23%, which is much higher than analysts' expectations. They think a part of it is this big one-time cash payment. So this tells us two things, obviously. Well, it tells us more than two things, but this weird working relationship that Apple and Samsung have to have, and the fact that they're so intimately involved that Samsung knows exactly how many displays Apple needs, how many units they're moving, the speed at which, what their production schedule looks like for new models. And
it's a tight ship.
It's weird, right?
Yeah.
To be that closely involved with what many would consider to be your main competitor. Right. And then on the other side, to have this double up of negative performance. So your phone doesn't sell as well as you expect. So you don't need all these extra displays. So you're already hurting a little bit on that front. And then you got to turn around and send $1 billion to the supplier because you couldn't meet it. Now, there's a bit of dispute on how this $1 billion is exchanged. It may not be $1 billion. They don't show up with briefcases.
They don't?
No. They may just move that money towards a future contract or something like this. But it's always weird to me to examine these inner workings and the fact that, much like the Huawei story earlier, you think you're a tech fan you think you're a fan of a particular brand, just realize it's not that simple. Mm-hmm. It's also intertwined, technology and advancement and building on top of what others have and the variety of components and companies that go into the thing that sits in your pocket. It's better to be a fan of the whole thing in general.
Yes.
It's a safer bet.